On today's episode of Watch Jericho, we are back in the garage with my Jag S-Type. In the last episode, we bought a bunch of parts for it and fixed a bunch of things. Today, we're fixing even more. What is going on, guys? I am Watch Jericho, and like I said, I'm in the garage with my 2003 Jag S-Type. Now, I bought this car cheap. It was only $3,000, and it drove home. But it sure needs a lot. If you want to see just how bad it was, I'll throw a link in the description below to my check over with Dana, where we went through the whole car and found out it's got a lot of issues because it's got a lot of miles. So, today, we're going to try to sort out more of the engine issues, and there are quite a few. In the last episode, we fixed the coolant reservoir and replaced a bunch of other things like the MAF to help this thing run better. And in this episode, we're tearing the whole top off the engine and hopefully putting it all back together. So let's just jump right in and see how far we get. Remember, the back seat is completely full of parts for this thing. There are a lot that need to go on, so it's gonna take a while to get it all done. Well, the cool thing about this is now we have hood struts. What a huge win. So much better than vice grips. So we have intake gaskets, valve cover gaskets. The valve covers have a little bit of a leak. We've got coils, we've got plugs, and to do a lot of this, it involves ripping everything off the top of the engine. So that's where we're gonna start today. We'll pull this cover to begin with and figure out what all we need to do to get this upper plenum off of here. And from there, we'll figure out just how deep we have to go to get to both banks of this V6. The 3-liter V6 has been awesome so far, super reliable for having been, not taken care of most of its life. We're gonna give it the spot A it deserves though and make it run better than ever. Well, that's not a great sign. We're 2 seconds in and there's already an aftermarket coil in here, and it doesn't even look like the right coil. Let's go see what we got. So I have these Delphis for it, and they look like, well, they look like this coil, and not like what's apparently the OEM one. So hopefully this is correct. Well, they plug in. No reason to mess with this anymore now. It's gonna take a while to get to the point where we actually need to change these coils. So let's just jump right in here and start ripping things apart. We have a lot of ripping to do. Okay, we finally got the upper intake off, which is an absolute nightmare, I have to tell you guys. I used to think this thing was good to work on until you have to unplug all of these different actuators for the variable intake runners there. There's MAP, vacuum, and then actuator. A whole lot of stuff has to be done before you get to actually remove that thing. Oh, and make sure you unbolt this bridge because it is wrapped around the fuel pressure regulator there. So this helps stabilize the whole upper intake, and you have to take all the bolts out of that because that's a nightmare too. So I used to love this engine, and now I've already grown to hate it. It looks like this valve cover has been off and cleaned up, and possibly maybe they did a gasket. It doesn't really look like they did a gasket based on this gunk right there. Pretty gunky. And then this valve cover looks like it's never been off. This car has 138,000 miles on it. Look at that junk coming off of there. Now it's time to pop all these coils off. They are an 8, if I remember right. So that should just take a second, and I'll get all those out, and we'll take a look at the spark plugs and see what's most likely 140,000 mile spark plugs look like as well. Maybe they changed one of them, but they sure, I don't think they ever pulled the intake. Tell me if yellow upper intake gaskets are the factory ones. I guess that's how we'll know if it's ever been apart. All the coils are out, and only the driver rear looks like it's full of oil, so that's pretty good so far. Obviously, none of them look great. They're all kind of covered in oil in general, but that's coming down from the top, not coming around the well seals there for the most part. So time to put all these aside and start pulling the valve cover. Just a note, I did find a little bit of oil back in the passenger rear spark plug well as well there. So that one's definitely leaking too. Let's get this thing ripped apart. We'll start with the valve covers, then do the spark plugs, just because the spark plugs will keep junk from falling down in the cylinders. I finally have all the wiring harnesses and all of the bolts out of these valve covers, which means we can finally pry them off. I'm just finding factory RTV in here and stuff that we're gonna have to replace, all kinds of good fun in here. So, let's see, this is gonna stay with the valve cover. The wire harness can move around a little bit there. Let's pop these things off. Where's my pry bar? Hey, look at that. I wasn't expecting it to just pop free. That wasn't too bad. It's gonna be a little bit of fun getting over the VVT actuators here. Hey, look at that, came right off. It looks like this bracket here that holds this harness on will at least have to come sort of loose because the wires won't let the valve cover clear. But that ought to be enough, I think. Yeah, that looks like it's clear. All right. Let's finish prying this thing off of here. Even with the wire harness out of the way, it seems like we're a little stuck on this VVT actuator here. I need a shorter pry bar. No one ever says that. Yeah, we're actually free, aren't we? It looks like this thing should just pop right off now. How's it look inside? The million-dollar question. 140,000 miles on this car. Something's holding me back. Can't tell what. Ooh. The answer is the worst thing that I could have ever imagined. A chain guide. Oh no. Oh no. Look at these, are all brittle and cracked. Oh, that's what happens when you have a 140,000 mile Jag engine. The guide snapped right off right there, and you can see all these little lines where this thing is super brittle in there. Don't be the case on the driver's side here. Oh, wow, it came right off. Oh, so far so good. Gasket's stuck. It went all the way down. Couldn't have asked for more. Well, no plastic guides laying here in the top of the valve train. That's nice. The cams look amazing. Let's get you guys in here for a closer look. I just wanted to take a quick inspection before we did that and kind of see what the spark plug wells look like. And there's only a tiny bit of oil in there. Just a little tiny bit at the very back of both of them. I literally cannot win with the Jags I buy, can I? The F-Type head gasket, the XJ8 completely retimed, not to mention all the other work that went into it. This S-Type, timing again. Let's jump in here and take a look at what we're working with. So our valve covers will need a ton of cleaning. They are absolutely grody. There's just buildup of oil and gunk. You know, some of this is like leaves and stuff that collects in there. A lot of pine needles were in this one, and that stuff, there's some of the pine needles right there. You can see all the gunk on the passenger side valve cover. It is absolutely wrecked. More of that guide. That guide is, well, we got to figure out where that guide came from. I'm assuming it's this shoe right here. Actually, it looks like that's exactly what it is. I can see just a hair of the metal. First, we'll look through here. For the oil, doesn't look amazing, but obviously an oil change, we'll get that sorted out. There's a ton of cleaning to do. Got a lot of cleanup, but overall, like, the engine looks very good inside. I don't see any sludge, so we're doing all right here. Let's try to get a little bit closer with the light. That way you guys can see just how good this looks. Like, there's almost no wear on the cams. You can see the tip of the lobe, a little mirror finish there where it's been running on the lifters, but other than that, it looks very, very good. So, oh, there's more of that shoe right there. You can see it just at the very bottom of the chain. That's where it broke. So it's still in there and it's still working. It looks like it's actually supporting the chain, but pieces of it have kind of migrated out. Inside the intake, the lower intake, it looks nasty, but it will easily clean up. It's port injected And we've got all new seals for all of that good stuff. We've got all new valve cover gaskets. Over here, the timing set looks much nicer. You can see the shoe is intact down in there. Honestly, everything over here on the driver's side looks pretty darn good, I'd say. So we're just gonna go ahead and clean all this up so we can put the valve covers back on. And if we're gonna end up retiming this, it's gonna be a job. There's a lot that has to go on to actually probably even replace that one shoe, because there's no accessibility, right? So there's no easy way to get down in there and clean up that one shoe that's just off by a hair. You really have to get in there and retime the entire engine. Well, let's take a look at the plugs and see what we're working with here. Wow! Incredibly tight. I don't know if these were changed or if they've just never been touched. Either way, not a great sign. Pull this out real quick. Ooh, there is no electrode on that plug. No wonders they changed the coil. What? These are original to the car. Wow, this thing's in bad shape. Bosch Platinum Plus. Look at the Corona stain on this thing. The Corona stain is insane. When we look at the business end of the plug, it is gone. Wow. The whole thing's been ate away. There's a taper on the strap. There's nothing left. That's insane. I wanted the replacements to match, so I bought Bosch Platinums. This is not a Platinum Plus, but this is just the normal Bosch Platinum. And it does have a taper from the factory in this direction, but it sure does not have a taper in that direction. So here's our new one. This is what we're putting back in. It looks like a spark plug. Another one that's really hard to get out. I'm kind of impressed at this point. Not a lot of threads holding these in either. It's kind of nice the way that they're in there. You only have to do like 6 turns to pull it out. Looks like junk. Massive Corona stain. Wow. Let's go for the last one. The one with a little bit of oil. Not enough oil to matter though. It doesn't even come up over the actual hex on the spark plug. Usually spark plug wells are just full. I think the oil took the Corona stain off. There wasn't much in there, but it definitely helped clean it up. I'm gonna have to put a breaker bar on my spark plug here. I've got all my weight on this thing. Ugh. The junk and the threads when these come out, the Corona stain, I mean, they are some of the worst plugs I've ever seen. And the last one here. Okay, here's the new plugs. Bosch Platinum 6747s. This is what the factory called for, so it's exactly what I bought. I wanted everything to match up, and I was planning on this being a quick, straightforward job. We're gonna go ahead and, these are also pre-gapped. I mean, I only buy spark plugs that are pre-gapped, and the only reason I ever have to change a gap is when they're race cars, because otherwise I buy Platinums and stuff where you're never supposed to adjust their gaps. Somebody mentioned in the comments they never see me gap spark plugs, and there's a reason for that. Well, I've seen a couple of random misfires and felt a couple little shudders, you know, when this car is kind of idling, not really. When it's on throttle, it runs super, super smooth. But when you're just starting it up, you feel like a little shake every now and then. And I bet it was those spark plugs. I bet they were toast. And new coils, probably just wise to do in general. Here, let's make the internet really mad. Okay, the new spark plugs are in, everything's apart. Tomorrow morning, we are heading back over to the Car Ninjas, I guess, or my dad's, somewhere with a solvent tank, and we're gonna throw the valve covers in there, get those all cleaned up. A few more things all the brackets will get cleaned up. Basically, everything needs to be squeaky clean and ready to be reassembled. Over here, we have new valve cover gaskets, new upper manifold gaskets, and possibly, I don't know if we're gonna do these, but we have new lower gaskets as well, or these are the lowers here, or the other way around. Who knows? Either way, I have all of the manifold gaskets here, and I wanted to make sure there were no intake leaks because I had felt those misfires and I assumed, you know, maybe it just has a little vacuum leak. I also have a new PCV valve sitting right here, so we are literally replacing all of the failure things I could come up with, and should be a clean sheet other than the fact that we may have to pull the valve covers back off down the road and retime it. So for now, we're just gonna put the valve covers back on and see what happens. Maybe there's even more issues that I need to sort out down the road, but obviously it hasn't jumped time or anything, it still runs very well. And if that changes after, then we'll go back to the drawing board and keep fixing. Here we are again, another broken Jag with timing issues or some other major issue, and always like no mileage too. 130,000 miles, 80,000 miles on the XJ8 or whatever, maybe even less. I don't remember, but that's pretty crazy. Well, I sent Dana the pictures of that broken guide this morning, and he was like, man, it sure runs well for having half of a guide on one side. Now, the thing is, the leading edge of the chain is still protected by a guide. It's the trailing edge, that's where that guide broke off and just kind of popped up. So it still runs great, nothing's really in the way. So then I asked him about those yellow gaskets in the lower intake plenum, and he said yellow gaskets are the OEM ones and green are the replacements. I think our replacements are blue because Felpro, obviously. Felpro's always running the blue gaskets there, but that means that car has basically never had any maintenance. I don't think it's ever had spark plugs, coils, anything done other than that one coil that was different in 140,000 miles. But man, I'm impressed. Somebody drove that car 140,000 miles, did zero maintenance, we can tell from the state of the suspension and the engine, and for some reason it, you know, it took a licking and kept on kicking. So shout out to Ford for, I was gonna say Jag, but I went ahead and changed it to the proper engine, Ford, for designing such solid engines. Yeah, if you were gonna throw that car away, it kind of lived the perfect life. We're here bringing it back. Just got back from cleaning up the valve covers, and for some reason, the driver's side one has no paint and came out looking pretty good. And the passenger side one has all of its original paint and looks horrible now that the paint has kind of come off of the old cast material. So you can see the gray of the cast aluminum. It looks really bad, but honestly, I'm not gonna repaint the valve covers. We're going back together like this. So I think for now, we kind of have to put it back together and get it running again. Plus, I want to see if this cleans up the misfires, having good plugs. So now that we've got it all apart, I'll finish cleaning up all the mating surfaces. We'll put this back together, and from there, we'll decide what to do with the rest of it. I think it's going to be better either way, but first, let's get this thing back together in the next episode. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop. Watch Jaguar.com for cool shirts just like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time. I need you guys to buy the shirts because I just ruined another one with solvent. I was covered from head to toe. Anyway, we got them clean. Took a lot of scrubbing. We got a new PCV. We got a new everything for this. So hopefully this fixes a lot of it. And also it'll be a lot easier to get it back apart if we're doing timing. So at least it still has all of its guides, right? It's only half of a guide that's missing. It was not the important part of the guide. So that's where we're starting. To replace the guides and the timing set, basically the whole front end has to come off of this car. It's kind of starting over. We'll have to pull obviously the coolant reservoir, all these, there's probably 50 coolant hoses. It's an insane job. So for now, like I said, we're putting it back together and we'll see what happens.